Call the meeting to order. All of the library trustees are here. Jill Harper, Kate Garahan, um, Heather Martin Mayer, Bonnie Rogers, and Elizabeth Patterson. Veronica, do we have any public comment?
We have no public comment.
Okay, it is now 10:03, so we will wait the 5 minutes for public comment.
I'd like to make a public comment.
Okay,
I finished the library training and it made it really clear that the relationship between the trustees and the directors should be collaborative, should be a warm relationship, should be one of mutual support, that we're on each other's side, and that the director should inform the board, and the board is to ask questions and make decisions from those questions and answers. I've been on the board for a little over a year, and what I have seen is a lot of negativity, a lot of antagonism, a lot of demanding, a lot of unsupportive comments to the director and the staff, very few positive comments. That's one thing I noticed. A lot of nitpicking things about, a word here, a word there, a lot of criticism and very little praise. As a school teacher, my philosophy was that 95% of what I said to my students was positive. That didn't mean that I let them get away with things they shouldn't. But I think that being positive and being supportive, people react better, you get more out of them, you have a better relationship. And so what I would like to see, more openness, more working as a team, more catching people being good and being positive, writing thank yous to the staff at the library, making masks for them, dropping off donuts, saying to them, thank you for all your hard work, not just Amy, but the staff too. And I don't think we've been doing near enough of that. I think that we should have mutual support and understanding and be part of the solution. I think that maybe having more subcommittees and focusing on positive things that we could be doing for the community would be very helpful. I think that we should have more interaction with the county commissioners, that maybe once a month or once every couple months that we go and we are positive to them and supportive and telling them about our library. I think that we need to be more of advocates for the library than critical of the library. And that's it's hard for me to be in a negative atmosphere. So I just needed to share those feelings. I know it's not always, there's not usually anything on the agenda to talk about it, but that's very strongly how I'm feeling. And I've been working with the library for 13 years. I helped raise all that money.
Trustee Harper, but there is an item on the agenda specific to the training. I believe it's item 8. And so I think your comments are more related to that item. I hate to interrupt you, but I think if you make your comments, or you've made your comments, and then that you can have a full discussion regarding those comments under item 8, because it is specifically listed on the agenda regarding the training.
Okay, thank you. I just felt like I needed to share my feelings.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Cynthia. So we still have 3 minutes for, 2 minutes for public comment. Has there been any more public comment, Veronica? Veronica, are you there?
Sorry. There has been no public comment.
Okay. Public comment is now closed. Item 2 for possible action, discussion on approval of proposed agenda. The Library Board of Trustees reserves the right to take items out of order to combine two or more agenda items for consideration and to remove items from the agenda at any time. All items designated for possible action shall include discussion by the Board of Trustees, and they may take action to approve, modify, deny, take no action, or continue the item. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Okay, Liz made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'm
I'll
sorry, my
second.
name is Elizabeth. My name is not Liz.
It's not, so it's Elizabeth?
My name is Elizabeth.
Okay, I'll use that then. Sorry. Okay. Is there a discussion? All of those in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
So
I'm
we're
sorry,
all,
this is Veronica Hallam. Was there a second?
I had seconded it and Jill was muted
Yeah.
when she seconded it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
we'll get this. Okay, all of those in favor, raise your hands and say aye. So is there
Aye.
anyone opposed? Okay, the motion to approve the agenda passes 5-0. For possible act, item 3 for possible action. Discussion on approval of the minutes of January 26, 2021 and February 23, 2021. Do we have a motion on the January 26, 2021 minutes?
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, Elizabeth has made the motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll
I
second.
second.
Kate, second. Okay, is there discussion or corrections or changes to the minutes? Hearing none, all of those in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Those opposed, would you raise your hand? Okay, the minutes for January 26th are approved on a 5-0 vote. The minutes of February 23rd, 2021, is there a motion to approve?
I need to make some corrections.
Okay. Would you want to make those now, Kate?
Okay, I didn't know. We need to make a notation in there that Jill had to leave the meeting and correct the first votes where she was present to be a 5-0 vote instead of a 4-0.
Okay.
Because the approval of the minutes for February 4th should have been 5-0. The consent calendar should have been 5-0. And then the budget performance summary should have been 5-0. And then it should be noted that Jill had left the meeting and it was at 39 minutes, so that those votes that are after that show a 4-0 vote because she was gone.
Okay, Veronica, will you make those changes?
Yes, I will make those changes.
I don't have on the agenda the February 4th meeting. So we need to approve the February 4th meeting.
No,
Minutes
those were
are-
Those
approved.
were approved
Yeah,
last
those
time.
were approved at the last time. Yeah.
They were approved at the last, okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve the February 23rd minute?
I'll make a motion to approve them with those corrections.
Second?
I second.
Okay, Jill, second. All of those in favor? Say
Aye.
aye. Rich.
Aye.
All of those opposed? None. So the motion to approve the February 23rd, 2021 meeting minutes is 5-0. Okay, the consent calendar. The items appearing on the consent calendar are items that can be adopted with one motion unless pulled by a trustee wishing to have an item or items further discussed. When items are pulled for discussion, they will be automatically placed as the next item for discussion or may be continued until another meeting. For possible action, approval of gift fund claims, February 2021 and March 2021. Is there discussion of the consent calendar? Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? I will make the motion to approve the consent calendar. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Kate, second. Further, any discussion? Okay, all of those in favor of approving the consent calendar, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Is there any of those opposed? Okay, the motion to approve the consent calendar is passed 5-0. For possible action, discussion and review a budget performance report summary and gift fund summary. Amy?
Okay. There are two spreadsheets for you this time. The first being our regular budget performance report ending February 28th. And it just shows that we're within target on almost all of our budget lines. And then the second spreadsheet is the same thing, except it adds a column on the far right of which budget lines are over budget and what amount would be needed to bring them current to 0 or above. And that was at the request of Trustee Garahan. Excuse me. So the lines that do need more funds to bring them back to 0 or above are noted with little notes on the right-hand side. The notes are very brief because I couldn't fit much on there, so I'm happy to answer questions. But I did make note of the line items that will have a CARES Act refund at some point. Some of them are small, some of them are significant. For instance, excuse me, in the communications line, which is at the top of page 2 of that spreadsheet, those are the expenses for SOSU TV, who translates our meeting to YouTube for us and sends us the recording, and that is billed by the hour. I don't think we'll have to continue that indefinitely, but we can discuss that later. But those funds have not been spent before, and so that's why that budget line looks like it's way out of whack. But again, that's COVID reimbursable. And then a couple of other notes of lines that will clean up on their own once things are further into the fiscal year. Pardon me, I don't know why my phone's ringing. Sorry, I thought I turned that off. Anyway, and then there are a couple things that are in the wrong line, and we've talked to finance, and so they'll move that around for us. So are there any questions about that or about just the budget performance report in general?
Okay, so I had the question on the professional services, so that transfer will be made.
It will. It's part of the augmentation approval that was pulled from the commissioners meeting last week. That was to pay for the investigation, and that has to be put to the Board of Commissioners for final approval, but it was pulled from the agenda, and so it will have to be in the next round of approvals for them before that is moved into that account line.
And Amy, the janitorial services, what was this one? Cataloging, and there was another one that was a large amount. Those equal $21,000. Where will that money come from to balance those?
Well, once we get reimbursed for the CARES Act stuff, that will bring us into a more positive number. And then some of them will have to be balanced out by other lines where we're not spending as much as we projected, like computer systems and things like that. Once we get those augments approved and get the COVID reimbursements, it'll look a lot cleaner. But yeah, some lines will have to balance out with other lines. We don't have to transfer those funds as long as the category is at budget at the final bottom line.
And is there any expectation date of when you'd get the carries or COVID funds?
No, we're just now learning about what we're getting for the previous fiscal year for COVID. So it might be a while. And so my plan is that if it doesn't clean up as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, then I can talk to finance about what we need to do.
Okay.
Okay, I noticed, Amy, that the book budget, the materials budget is 18,000 over.
No, I'm glad you asked that. That's a weird line. What they do is they put an encumbrance in there, which throws off the balance temporarily. So for example, it shows that our beginning budget was 122,000. We spent 4,111 this month, or in February, I should say. The encumbrances of 59,000 is what's encumbered, and that's sort of like putting it on hold, like when someone puts a hold on your credit card, just to show that that money is on hold to pay for orders that have been placed. Once those transactions come in, it doesn't always disappear from the encumbrance right away. So it looks like we've spent 59,000 plus 80,000 in the next column over, and that's not the case. It's just that those encumbrances will have to drop off. And that's something that we don't do. It's something that finance does. So it looks like we're 18,000 over budget, but we're not, because we've only spent 80,000 out of 122,000. Does that make sense? It's
Yes,
complicated. Okay. Good. Yeah, that's a weird line, and it always looks weird until those encumbrances drop off.
Amy, when I looked at the county agenda last week, I don't remember seeing the $12,000 on that. I saw the small projects and the book lockers, but I didn't see the transfer on that, on the statement you submitted.
That's right. When I submitted the original request to Terry back in January, that's the one that was in the board packet for the commissioners last week. It was the wrong one. And that's why one of the commissioners thought that we were going ahead with the book lockers, because it still said book lockers. So the one that was included in their packet was incorrect. It was an old one. I had already corrected it and talked to Terry about taking the book lockers off, and she knew also about the transfer of the $12,000, and that just didn't show up on the backup. I'm sure it was just a clerical error. But that's another reason why that item was pulled.
Would you send us a copy then of what you sent to her for corrections?
I sure will.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions on the budget performance report?
And so, Amy, on the janitorial services, the encumbrances, is that the same as it was with the library materials?
It may be. That's paid by the facilities department. They just take the money out of our account. We don't pay that bill directly anymore. So I can double check with them, but yeah, I think it is the same case as the encumbrances. They encumber the money and then pay the bill, and then later it drops out of encumbrance. So, but I can double check to make sure, since that's paid by a different department.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're
Further
welcome.
comment?
Oh, sorry. I just have a question, Trustee Garahan. Does this column answer the questions that you had about our balances?
Well, it does, but as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year, will we get something that shows we're balanced?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, definitely.
Okay, because like I said, those lines that show we're 479% of the budget for it, I just want to make sure that we're going to have enough funds before the end of the fiscal year.
Right, absolutely. And I do too. That's something that will definitely happen. And oh, and one more of note, I almost forgot. There's a capital project that was paid for out of capital funds. It was for the new telephone system, which we paid out of small equipment. But that money has not transferred from capital to our balance yet. So that one should zero itself out when it does. But we haven't heard back from finance on that. So that was a transfer that just didn't occur way back last year. And that's $8,900. So that'll make a big impact once that's corrected. That's all.
Okay, other questions? Do we need action on that, Amy?
No. No, it's just a discussion item.
Okay. Item number 6, discussion and possible action to revise the library board bylaws. It's the second reading.
I made the corrections that were given at the last meeting. I think there's still a couple of items that might need to be cleaned up a little bit, but I'll let the board go first.
Yeah, I saw a few items for cleanup. Roman numeral 6, officers. Number 1, after the word chairperson, we should have the word from, among.
Oh, yes.
Same section, item 3, end of the first line. 2 consecutive terms is what we discussed.
Thank you.
And then I actually have a new suggestion, which is kind of minor, but jumped out at me on the rereading. Under officers, item 5, ad hoc committees. I wonder if we could change the word problems to issues. I think it's a more positive word.
Mhm.
I'd
We
like
could
to,
even
go-
combine number 4 and 5, technically.
Yeah, we probably could, although I don't know how important combining is. And then on the next page, the library board may, I just would like Cynthia to double check we have the NRS citations correct in
Which
each of
section?
those lines. So the library board may sort of a third of the way down, page
Page
4.
4. Yeah.
That was
Page
one
five.
that I had because I thought Cynthia said last time to change that 355 to 354.
Yeah, and one of them got changed and the other didn't, but it might have been my note, so.
Hold on. Where's the 3? Oh, there it is. Sorry.
what
So that is
page?
354, Cynthia?
So I went back and double checked. And so what I think the safest thing to do is, because there were some confusion, so it's just to say Title 31 of Nevada Revised Statutes, and that incorporates all of those chapters, 354 and 355. And so it's just cleaner.
So where would I put that?
So with regards to, on page 4, the library may, under items 2 and 3,
Mhm.
instead of NRS chapter 355 or 354, we just put in accordance with NRS title 31.
Oh, thank you.
And that includes both of those chapters, and then that gives you the greatest flexibility in case something changes.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to go back to page 2, under 6 officers, or number, excuse me, under 6 officer number 3. It should be, no board member shall be eligible to serve more than 2. That's okay. I want to be sure that reads correctly.
Yeah,
2
we
consecutive
just
terms.
put consecutive back into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, because that's what I just couldn't, I marked it and I couldn't figure why I changed it. Okay,
Was that
Other
all you
comment?
had, Bonnie? Was that
What'd you
all
say?
you had, Bonnie?
that's all I had, yes.
Okay, and Roman numeral 3, item 1. I believe Elizabeth last time at the meeting said that we should have members and then parentheses, quote, trustees in that first line.
Oh, after the word 5?
Yeah, that is what we had discussed. And when I reread it, I decided it didn't matter the way this is typed.
So leave it as is.
I'm fine with it the way it is
Okay.
now.
Okay, and then under officers, item 3, where it says they are, it was supposed to be who he or she is.
Where's this? Which
Item
line?
number 3,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the second to the last line. The last line was changed, but the second to the last line still says they are.
Mine says he or she.
Mine says they
Oh,
are.
there it is. There it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the one up above
And I
it.
changed that too, at which who she is selected or elected until a successor is elected.
Okay, and then in the one where Elizabeth had the change for problems to issues, that one, I believe Cynthia said that we need to include in there that the ad hoc committees are consistent with open meeting law.
So Cynthia Gregory from the Douglas County DA's office. Sorry if you can hear some buzzing in the background. They're cutting up the sidewalk behind my office. But for 4 and 5, I think it's best if you do include, meetings to be held consistent with NRS 241 as applicable to both of those.
Meetings to be held. Did you say in accordance?
Meetings to be held consistent with NRS
consistent.
chapter 241 as applicable. Sorry about the noise.
Okay, thank you.
And then under section 7, meetings and records, it says in the third line, I believe it is, that at least 48 hours advance notice. Should that be 72 hours?
Yeah, that's not in line with the open meeting law. I was going to bring that up too.
What page is that on?
It's on page
3.
3.
Okay.
Item Roman numeral 7, number 2. Cynthia, do you want to weigh in on that one? Because we have to give at least 3 business days notice for all meetings.
Right, that's correct, unless it's an emergency. You have to post within
So
3
should we
days.
change that to 72 hours or 3 business days?
I would say 3 business days, because that's consistent with 241.
Okay. Thank you. Did you have anything else, Kate?
Yes, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Section 8, the powers of the trustees. Number 2, appoint, evaluate the performance, and if necessary, dismiss a librarian. I can't remember if we discussed this. Should that say director, or because aren't there other librarians who work for you?
Yes, but the statute says librarian. It's kind of an old statute. So yeah, it should say library director, but the statute says librarian. And there are various titles around the state, so I guess they just left that one alone.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear that we have no authority over the other employees.
Right.
And then under item 12, number 1, every January, trustees shall be appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. It says selected.
Okay,
Wait a minute. Which section?
12, calendar,
Oh,
the first
thank you.
item.
Yeah, I had an issue with that. Okay.
And I think we said drop the word new, but I am not positive.
Well, because if you're current, they won't appoint you, so it would be new trustees they're appointing.
And that was all I had.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments?
I have a couple things, but I don't know if Trustee Harper or Trustee Meyer have comments about this.
No comments.
Okay.
Heather, do you have comments?
You're muted, Heather.
Sorry, no, I don't have any comments.
Okay,
Okay. I had a couple of things to bring up. First of all, just wanted to mention, since we've changed it to Robert's Rules of Order instead of the Sturgis standard, we've purchased copies of Robert's Rules for all of the trustees and also for the library collection and myself. So we have those here for you. You can stop by and pick them up, or if you like, I can mail them to you.
okay, let Amy know if you want to pick them
Yeah.
up, if you want to.
Yeah, just send me an email. We have it
Okay.
here whenever you want it. But anyway, my notes about the bylaws. Under Roman numeral 7, number 1, it says that meeting times will be adopted at the January meeting. And normally we do that in November. So, so that people can plan for the coming year. And so I was wondering if we could change that to November.
What page is it in?
Oh, page 3, under meetings and records, Roman numeral 7.
It could also just say no later than
Oh, okay.
the January meeting.
Well, either one is fine. What would the board like?
That's fine with me. No later than.
No later than. Alrighty. And then, oh, on page 4, towards the bottom, Roman numeral 9, item number 5, all budget augmentations must be submitted to the Board of Trustees for review and approval. Do we want to set an amount on that? Sometimes the transfers and augments are very small. And we do have to follow all of the county finance policies and procedures. And I think this is a new item for our bylaws. We didn't always bring those for approval. We always, in the past, brought them after the commissioners and the finance department had approved it. But if you want them ahead of time, that's fine. I just want to know if that's what you really want.
Well, yes, for me, that's what I want, but I don't think I would change that.
Okay,
It's just, you could do them all, you could do the small ones all in maybe one group or something, but this actually came from the finance department.
oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, this whole section came from the finance department and reviewed by Cynthia and by Doug, so.
Okay, so do you want to approve all of them or only a certain dollar amount?
Well, what would be a dollar amount that you would recommend?
Well, we've had some really small ones. For instance, we had a grant from the state library that was only $600. And so that was an augment, but it was really tiny. And so maybe anything over 1,000, or it's up to the board completely.
I think it's good for the board to know what augmentations are coming in, even whatever amount it is,
Okay,
because that affects our budget as a whole.
okay, we can do that.
And I think that keeps us then in compliance, that there's no question about how much money we have and what it is.
Okay.
And,
Any other comments from the trustees about that item? Is everybody happy with the way it is?
Cynthia has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Cynthia, go ahead.
And of course, they're right behind my my door at this time. So I didn't know if you just meant on that item, Amy, or if you had other changes.
No,
I
just
have,
that item.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I just have
it's
one additional suggestion change. I think you guys have covered all the other ones that I had, but it's on page 1, Roman numeral 3, item 2. Just for internal consistency, I'm not sure that you want that second sentence. Trustees shall hold office until their successors are appointed.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, because people leave and things happen and.
So yeah, so my suggestion is just to delete that second paragraph. I mean, excuse me.
All of it?
No, just the second sentence.
second sentence, okay.
Yeah, I misspoke, sorry.
Yeah, that's great. Thank
That's
you.
good. Yeah,
And then, sorry, I just had a couple more. On page 5 under Roman numeral 12, number 1 says every January new trustees shall be appointed. And in the last couple of years, they've been doing it in December. So do we want to put a month on that, or just say that every year new trustees will be appointed?
They did it in January this year.
Oh, they did? Oh, well,
Yeah.
previous year it was December. Sorry. They change it every
Well,
time.
they
So
may
I-
have only changed it one year, but it's
That's
usually, ever since I've been on, it's been the January of the year, the new year. So I would leave it January unless they make an official change.
Okay. And then in the same section under number 4, item I, or lowercase 1, where it says by October, the board would review and approve a 5-year long range plan. Well, we're not going to do a long range plan every year. I think that item 3, where it says expectations and objectives, we could include that, or we could just say update the objectives of the long range plan. But I think the way it's worded is a little confusing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I noticed that also.
So I don't
So
know.
just leave
Sabrina
off the
has it.
word approve?
No. Well, you could. Yeah, that would work. And then you would just be discuss, update, and review the long range plan,
That makes more sense.
and then set goals and milestones, and then set expectations. And I don't know. It's a little awkward, but it's fine.
Yeah, and plus there isn't agreement in the list. We should have a verb in each item of the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the only one that doesn't have a verb.
Yeah,
You might, you might, well, you do, but you have it in the first sentence. It shall, because you should review.
that's
you
true.
did this,
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe we should take the verbs out of all the other ones. It could say, discuss, update, review, and approve. And then the first one could be annual objectives of the long range plan, because we do that annually. And then
Yeah.
the other two is we could take out set goals and just put goals and milestones, and the same for 3 and 4.
Okay.
It's up to the board, of course.
Do you have those written down?
Yes.
Because what did you say? I got annual objectives of the 5-year long range plan. What did you say for the other ones?
Oh, well, since it starts out as discuss, update, review, and approve, we could change 2 and 3 to goals and milestones instead of
Just
set.
remove set. Okay.
Just remove
Okay.
set on those
Set.
second two. And then the fourth one would just be the annual evaluation. And by the way, actually, number 4, that's not done in October, and it should be timeless. It shouldn't be about me. It should be about any library director. And so you can't really put a time on that because it matches their anniversary of employment. So that really shouldn't be under October.
I think number 4 should probably be number 5. When we do that,
yeah, Arabic numeral 5.
yes.
So
So we'll put complete back in.
So it should
yeah,
just,
thank you.
yeah.
Took me a second. Gotcha. Okay, so just to be ultra clear, we're going to change items 1, 2, and 3 to get the verb agreement correct and take out the word set. And then number 4 is going to jump down to item 5, and it will stay as is.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, and that is the end of my comments and questions. So would we like to bring this back with all those corrections next month, or do you want to approve it with corrections?
I move to approve the bylaws as amended today.
I second it.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. This has been a very important effort on the part of the board for the last 3 years. And so I
It has.
deeply appreciate the attention.
And I think
um,
these are much better than the previous ones.
yes,
Mhm,
much
mhm.
better.
Yeah.
Please do,
So we need to vote.
yes. All of those in favor of the bylaws as revised?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those opposed? So the bylaws are approved by a 5-0 vote.
I will send out the corrected one to all of you within the next couple days.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Yes,
you.
thank you.
Number 7, for possible action, discussion and possible action on the library's long-range plan. Discussion topics may include development of a timeline for creating the new long-range plan, previous goals, and board members' expectations, and included is a summary of previous objectives and accomplishments. I want to thank you, Amy, for collecting that because it really was very informative.
Oh, good, I'm glad. So just to review the history, the long-range plan was developed in 2011 and or finalized in 2011. I think it started in 2010. And so the first time that objectives were developed was in 2012. And every year the library director and the board would develop objectives to match those goals. And then at the end of that year, the library director would give updates. And so that's what you see in red on your copies that say complete or incomplete or what have you. Those are the director's notes about what was accomplished. And I became director in the middle of this. So my first year was 2015 on these objectives because I was hired at the end of 2014.
Discussion, comments on these. One thing that seemed to stand out to me as I went back and looked at all of them, how many were not completed because it said insufficient staff resources. And also what really struck me over this 10 years really is the number where they were asked to evaluate what had been done, that we didn't do that. And so I think those are things as we're looking at a new long-range plan, we need to look at, go back and look at some of this, but also look at how we're going to set up evaluating what we're doing. But this was really very interesting. Heather, you have a comment?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Those were the two things that really jumped out at me that, you know, I think there were a lot of good initiatives that were put forth in the objectives. And yet, you know, it was a little puzzling why they would be put forth if there wasn't enough staff to accomplish them. And maybe once they got into the initiatives, they realized they needed more staff. I'm not sure. But I think that's a lesson learned as we go forth in our planning, that we have to be very honest with ourselves about what we sign up for. And because we don't want to see a repeat of this where we sign up for, you know, things that sound great. But then a year later we say, well, you know, we couldn't do it because we didn't have enough people. That doesn't really move us forward. And I do think we have to decide about how we are going to evaluate ourselves if we don't like, you know, if we don't have time to do rubrics, or we don't like rubrics, or we don't like surveys, or what are the measurement tools that we like and that we're going to use consistently year over year. So I guess what I'm saying is I absolutely agree with you. And I think, again, I do want to thank you, Amy, for pulling out all this, because I think it's going to help us from, you know, repeating things that well, repeating the error of our ways from the past, and you know, and going forward, you know, in a more productive way in the future. So, yeah.
One thing I'll note for all the trustees, when they first started writing these objectives in 2012, it was shortly after the recession, which included some layoffs, and there were a lot of staff reassignments and a couple of layoffs in, I believe it was 2008, 2009, and those were still in place in 2012. We really didn't start rebuilding our staff until a few years later. So the insufficient staff part, I think you're right. Maybe the goals were a little too much for the staff that we had, but I'm certainly not criticizing the previous administration. I think they were just dealing with severe budget cuts and understaffing for a long time.
And that's a very fair, that could be a very fair and honest explanation. And it's hard to know going back 10 years. But I think it's a word to the wise to keep us honest going forward, that we don't want to have our eyes be bigger than our stomachs, to use a tired axiom. But we really, when we sign up for something, we have to feel that we have enough staff for it and allow for the fact that we've learned things happen, pandemics come, recessions come, hiring freezes come. So we have to allow wiggle room to make the plans be realistic, at the same time not being so timid that we never try to do anything.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
balance. Mhm.
yeah. Anyway, that's all I had to say. It was just, I think, underscoring what Bonnie was saying. So, yeah.
I think those are good points, Heather. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, Amy,
Yes, ma'am.
do we need to start setting a timeline for planning our how to start our long range plan?
Yes, I believe that would be a good step. We can do that now. It's part of the agenda item. Or we can decide to start on that at the next meeting. I think either would be appropriate.
Were
We
you
had
able
talked-
to get any information from the Nevada State Library, Amy, on how they'd be able to help us?
Yes, I have talked to the consultant a couple of times. They're happy to help with everything that they can help with. However, they're not the same as hiring an outside consultant. And so they're more than willing to come and help and provide whatever resources they can. But they did say at the very beginning, they usually are not involved in that part of the process. So it's up to us basically to set that timeline and goals and how we want to approach it. And then at that point, have them come in and talk about everything that they can do within those parameters that we've set.
Okay, I just didn't know if there were time constraints for them that we need to put in our timeline when they can help us.
They didn't tell me anything, no. So
Okay.
I think whatever we do, they'll be able to work with it. So basically, I think we need a plan for the plan.
Okay.
Okay, Amy, then at the April meeting, could you bring us a timeline and plan to start the process?
Heather has a question, Bonnie.
I just want to say goodbye to you all. I think Bonnie and Amy know that I have to leave now for personal reasons. So I'll say goodbye. I am going to listen to this later in the audio, and I wish you all for the rest of the meeting. And I will see you next month.
Thank you
And
very much, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yep.
Okay, we'll note that trustee Heather Martin Meyer left the meeting at 10:51.
I have a question, and this is just out of ignorance. How do we set this up? Do we have subcommittees that work on part of this and then we get back together? Or do we meet and do all the plan together? How does it work when we're doing the
Well,
long?
Jill, I can tell you, going through the last one, Barb Wilson and I both were on the board at the time we did the last
Mhm.
long-range plan. But we did have a consultant that came in and did the community, what were our strengths and weaknesses and what were our opportunities. And that's very helpful for an outsider to look at as what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what are your opportunities and your resources. And they talk to staff and talk to other people to get information to provide to the board. And the county, I'm not sure what the title of the department is, Cynthia might know, but anyone that does, they do the population of our county and where the population is. And they did the county department that does that did that for us. And that's one reason we pay them now, part of the, not, but continue to pay them for part of that. But so then the board as a whole was involved in the discussions as we went along. And then the consultant gave us a report back that absolutely, put it bluntly, was garbage. And because it was not our library. And it was not even our library at all. So the board took over and in 2 days sat down up at Tahoe, and actually in 1 day really, sat down and said what were our two major goals and what did we want to do, and wrote the long range plan, which, and has really set us up for the last 10 years for doing our technology and all of our outreach program with youth and things. And so it's a combination effort. The board has to be involved in the discussions and what you're looking to do and what opportunities are out there for you and what are some of your weaknesses that you have to address. And then getting the information about the county's population. And
So we're going to do it all ourselves, is what you're saying?
No, we don't do it ours. But we sit in and listen so we know what we're hearing, and we know how to put together then what goals set up that we want to have.
Mhm.
Okay. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Yep.
We can set up committees, but I think Bonnie's right. It's important to have all the board members contributing throughout the process. And just to mention consultants, as a reminder, I contacted the one at UNR that did this strategic planning for Carson City Library and Lyon County, I think. And I know we talked about not hiring a consultant, but that option is still there if we wanted to bring him in along the way. He's quite a bit more affordable than an outside consultant or a private firm. So that's something that we can elect to do later on. But I just want to throw that out there as a reminder.
I think it would be helpful if we have a plan and things, and then have the state library consultant come and talk with us. Okay. And give us some idea of what it is we're going to be encountering as we go through this process. Because if it's done correctly, it is intensive.
It is.
And so that we get the information that when we set out the goals, we know why we're setting them out and the objective each year.
So how long a process this is going to be? I mean, when do we expect this to be done?
It can take anywhere from 9 months to 2 years. Usually it's about a year.
Okay.
I would say 6 months to a year.
Okay.
That you could do it. That's just because I think that's literally about what we did. We started in 2010 and had approved in 2011. And my experience and what I thought was valuable to me at the time was having listened to all of this talk about when the board did sit down to write the strategic plan, they had a good understanding of what they were dealing with as far as our weaknesses and our opportunities in that. So
I think it'll definitely pull our board together that
Yes.
we're more on the same page.
Yes. Okay, so I don't think we need action on this, but if Amy, if you would bring us back a plan in April, we could start then.
Absolutely.
And we'd know when to invite maybe the state library consultant to come and talk with us and give us an idea of what the process looks like for it.
Okay.
Further discussion? For discussion only, discussion of state libraries online training for Nevada library trustees and review of completed modules. Amy included in our packet for those of us who've been on the board for a while, if we want to go back and review it, she included in our packet how to access the trustee training. I'm going to go back and review it. I don't know if they've changed it in 2 years, but maybe. Okay, any discussion on that? Those of you who, Elizabeth, have you completed the training?
I have not yet completed it.
Okay, so, and Jill, you have?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did.
Any other discussion?
Well, I just, like I said earlier, and Cynthia was right, it dealt a lot with this. I just feel like we need to become more of a team. And, you know, when we did the investigation, the only thing that really came out was that we don't communicate well. I call Amy a couple times a month. And what I do is I'll text her and I say, hey, can you talk? And a lot of times it's right before the board meeting. So I kind of have, you know, the materials in front of me and she can answer questions that you guys probably know the answers to, but I don't. And so that we have a rapport that has really, really been helpful for me. And I think that that's something that we all should be doing, is if you have questions ahead of time, instead of waiting till the board, you know, give Amy a call and maybe you can clear it up, or she'll be able to go get more information when we do come to the board meeting. So I just think we need more transparency, more teamwork, more positivity. I'm really working towards that.
Thank you.
Yeah, as the newest trustee, I also, because I've only had virtual meetings with you all, I don't feel as though I have any relationship with the other trustees. And that's partially an artifact of meeting virtually, because there's no chance to chat when we get there a few minutes early, or, you know, and I mean, I know almost nothing about any of you beyond your name. And I think that actually hinders our working together well as a team.
Absolutely.
I do too. No.
And the open meeting law issue, you know, because like I can't call Bonnie and talk about something and then call you, Elizabeth, and talk about the same thing, or say, oh, Bonnie said this. So that whole piece is stifling. It is.
Well,
and I think you're right that if we can start getting together in person when COVID is in a better place, that will help. That will help. But I do think talking to Amy and, you know, giving her, you know, heads up on things that we change or decide would be very helpful for all of us, for Amy and for us, you know. And it always helps me. You know, I talked to her the other day about censorship and how that worked, you know, because none of us knows everything. She is the expert, you know, and it's really nice to have somebody, and she's so available. You know, sometimes
Well, I think
sometimes it's, you know, I just say, I'm available this time. What's good for you? So I never try to call her and expect her to talk to me immediately. But I do think it helps, and especially with the newer people, because we have so many questions.
Well, I think it is important. And first time I saw Heather in person was, I said I was glad to see her because I didn't know if I would recognize her in person, because I'd only seen her on Zoom. But it is important, if you're talking to anybody else or something, that your decision, what you're going to vote on, is not decided by that. I don't mean that. Somebody can't say, well, vote on this because I want you to, or something.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to come into the meeting with an open mind.
Oh, absolutely. But
Yeah.
sometimes going and getting information, you know, filling in some holes can give you a better, you know, opinion.
Better decision.
Right.
So if you're talking, you just have to realize when you come to the board meeting, everything has to be objective and open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No question.
Okay.
I do try to answer the board within 24 hours. If any of you contact me for anything, I usually will get back to you very quickly, but definitely within 24 hours, unless I'm on vacation or something. So please contact me if you need anything.
Okay. And I think most of us feel if we have a question, we can do that. But so that's just important. And so, okay. Item number 9 for discussion only, update on library-related federal and state legislation in 2021.
Louise Davis is with us. She's our collection development librarian, and she's also our legislative liaison, I guess you'd say. She's part of the legislative day for libraries in Nevada and knows a lot more than I do. So I'm going to hand it over to her for presentation.
Hi, thank you. I'm sure some of you are wondering, who is this person and why is she here? So just to fill you in just a little bit about me, I am collection development librarian. I also do the volunteer coordinating when we have volunteers. I've been with the library for a few years anyway, and actually quite a few years. I've also been involved with Nevada Library Association and Mountain Plains Library Association. And that's kind of how I got involved with Nevada Libraries Legislation Day. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the experiences I had and where we're heading in 2021, because it's very different than before. Frequently what we did was we got together as a group. Nevada Library Association was coordinating everything. And in 2017, I had the opportunity to sit with Assemblyman Jim Wheeler on the assembly floor. And in 2019, I sat with Senator James Settlemeyer on the Senate floor. And we usually had a packet with us, and we could talk very casually with our representatives and ask them to support libraries in Nevada. The majority of this actually is the Nevada State Library and Archives, because they become the core, they're the center part of getting monies distributed to Nevada libraries, be it at the state level or the federal level. I'm going to go over some of that in just a minute. One of the things I did get to see in this process was in 2017. We were still coming out of the recession, and the State Library and Archives had been hit very, very hard. And in 2017, there was a bill, what they call SB 549. It was for $500,000, and it was in addition to what the governor had set aside in the budget plan to help them recuperate and help Nevada libraries recuperate from the recession. And some exciting things came out of that. The biggest one was it was voted for in both houses unanimously. And we can't even remember any other time that that had happened. And it was a one-time bill. And it was the first time they funded technology. And in fact, that's where, those of you who are familiar with our VR program, that is where the funding came from, was that bill. And so it's been really exciting to be a part of that. But we have to go back every session because things change. This year, of course, it changed hugely because we can't go in as a group this time. So Nevada Library Association set up a webinar to tell us how we could contact our representatives. They have everything set up on their webpage, so you can figure out how who your representatives are, so you know which ones you can contact. For us, it is still Assemblyman Jim Wheeler and Senator James Settlemeyer. Our primary goal this year is to get the Nevada State Library and Archives funded at the level that Governor Sisolak has proposed in his budget. Most, as you know, most departments took huge hits. They did take some, but it's not near as bad as we thought it was going to be. However, we need them as solidly funded as possible so that they can continue to help Nevada libraries recover from the pandemic. And I mean, they've done some critical stuff. Even during the pandemic. We got some funding that helped us with the, excuse me, with the toolkit. There was a, this one came out of the state funding, where there was a toolkit that we are now using for our virtual story times, and that included an HD camera, a mini iPad, lighting, a green screen, a microphone, to help us do the screening a whole lot better, making things run a lot smoother. That came out of state funding for that. And then some federal funding that came our way. I don't know how much you know about how federal funding works. When you're applying for grants, there are some that you can actually go to the Institute of Museum and Library Services. That's the federal branch that oversees funding for libraries. And it's an organization. Anyway, what they do is they work with a designated library in each state for the majority of the funding. And in our case, it's the Nevada State Library and Archives. And that's where your LSTA money comes from, and some of the other major grants. They use the umbrella of the Grants to States program, and that's how the majority of our funding comes from the federal side. So they, I'm sorry, that is where the virtual toolkit came from, not the state. It was our collection development for our digital program that came out of the state funding. I'm sorry I made that mistake, mixed up my notes. Anyway, then they have the CARES Act is also coordinated through Nevada State Library and Archives. And that's where we got the funding for the 8 laptops and 8 hotspots that are coming out for circulation. That's where that money came from. But we have to have the Nevada State Library and Archives as our coordinating library in order to get at those funds. So what we've had to do is to contact Senator Settlemyer and Assemblyman Wheeler to ask them to consider just keeping that budget intact. Now, in addition to that, you're probably all have been hearing in the news about the stimulus fund that came out of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Well, there actually was a library division in that too. They funded $200 million to the Institute of Museum and Library Services in that fund. It's the largest amount budget that IMLS has ever had. And that is to help libraries recover, because libraries stepped up during the pandemic, despite all the challenges that were going on. And they need money support to help recover from all of this. Because you know all about the additional expenses that we all have faced. We were fortunate that we didn't have layoffs, but libraries around the country did. So in that, there is a guaranteed $2 million per state to come out of that $200 million.
$2 million per state.
178 million that is specifically designated to that grants to states program, where you do have to have your state library administrative agency. That's their acronym, or that's their title that they use, but that is the Nevada State Library and Archives. So what we've done, what I've been working on, is to contact Assemblyman Wheeler and Senator Settlemyer, and several times in different manners. And this week, we received an invitation to meet with Senator Settlemyer tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I believe Amy sent you a copy of the invitation to that um, meeting. It will be a short one, but it is to show unity and supporting Nevada State Library and Archives and that budget so that we can keep things moving forward instead of losing ground, particularly from this last year. So if I can answer any questions for you, that's why I came to this meeting to explain what it was and why it's so important that we do continue to support it.
Thank you, Louise. I am going to try to sit in on the Zoom
Thanks.
meeting tomorrow.
Great.
But you said that with the stimulus fund, it's $2 million per state.
Yes, 2 libraries per state. But it goes through that central agency, in which case ours is Nevada State Library and Archives, and then they will disperse it throughout. They'll follow all the guidelines that they are given on it, because IMLS does set that up, but it is to be used specifically for libraries in this state.
Okay. Questions for Louise? That was very helpful. I didn't know the stimulus fund had money for libraries. So
It was a surprise. We did not know it was going to go through, and it's certainly not at the level that it did. I also am aware that there is another bill going through. There's one on the Senate side and on the House of Representatives side where they are considering providing funding for building of libraries, renovations, and improvements. They have not done that in the last 20 years.
Wow.
So, and it's coming in on both sides as well. So it'll be interesting to see if that one goes through. As that would be in addition to the one that we know went through for Institute of Museum and Library Services.
well, that'd be, you'll keep us informed about that. That'd be fantastic.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Louise.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry I got nervous.
Oh, no,
Things
that's
up.
okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Thank you. That was very informative. So if you have an opportunity, maybe join in the Zoom meeting tomorrow. It's at 10 o'clock and Amy sent out the information, your emails. Any questions for Louise or Amy?
And Louise, if you become aware of anything that we should write letters or make phone calls in relation to the current legislature, please let us know.
Actually, we can do that, because one of the things that we can do on a regular basis is through the Nevada legislature. There are ways to contact Assemblyman Wheeler and Senator Settlemyer. If you go to their web pages, or I can actually send you some information on that if you would like.
That would be nice.
Yes.
And then because like when the budget is going through, there is a place where you can contact them and say, and make your comments, support that. The more they hear from us in our community, the more likely they'll leave, they'll keep supporting it. They have a history here of supporting libraries. But, the biggest problem we have with the pandemic is their budgets were cut, throughout the state. And so they're spreading less dollars into more areas. And but we don't want to become that entity of, oh, well, your local government will take care of your library. You don't need the state funding. Well, we need the state funding to keep the State Library and Archives open and available, because without them, we absolutely do not have a way to get to that federal funding, and we're going to need that federal funding. So that's our big issue. This time, it's a huge domino effect. If the state library gets cut in any way, in a major fashion. So,
Yeah, the budget sorry.
No, please.
Sorry, I thought you were finished. Well, the budget that the state library has put forward is flat, the same as last year. And we can only hope that it stays that way because so many departments have been cut in the state. And I'll just add one more thing. Many of the databases that we have for the public are paid for by the state library. So without that, that would be a really big hit to either our budget or our resources. So we depend on the state library for that as well.
So when you say that's flat, is that after they did the 12% adjustment last year or from the beginning of last year?
I'm
No,
not sure.
I think it's the exact same one that they got last year. It's just that it has no increase. I mean,
Right.
because expenses and everything went up, but they weren't slashed the 12%. There were a few things that were cut, but not
Okay.
the 12%.
Yeah, because
everywhere.
everybody had to mid-year cut 12%. And
Right. Yeah,
I know
and
at
they
the
do have-
college, we have to maintain that 12% cut going forward.
Right.
So I was wondering which budget.
Yeah, that I do know that they do have the leave with I think we called it here leave without pay. I don't know if that's the name they use it, but where staff have to take
It's called furlough.
furlough. Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
I do know that they do have that restriction, and that did not go away. But the funding for the databases wasn't cut. All the program stuff to help support Nevada libraries, that's what stayed flat. Those weren't cut. It didn't go up, but it wasn't cut down. It came from other areas like the furlough.
I think it's important, you made an important point that we need with Assemblyman Wheeler and Senator Seldemeyer is without funding the state library, we lose access to the federal funds, and they will understand that. So if you have a chance, sit in on the meeting tomorrow. So other questions or comments?
Louise, are you a registered lobbyist at the state level?
No, I am not. That's
Okay.
why we have to stay focused on Assemblyman Wheeler and Senator Settlemeyer only. Because those.
Right, because they
people will have-
represent us.
Yep.
Right, and the county has their own registered lobbyists that handle the whole Quad County.
I don't know what, at what level they might be involved, so. But Nevada Library Association's plan became, since we can't go as a group like we have in the past, we just need to be persistent and find ways to reach out to them so that they know that it's still critical that we get the state library funded.
Other comments? Thank you very much, Louise. That was very good and very beneficial, very informative too. So
Cynthia, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to
I can't
remind
see
every-
people, so.
Sorry. Cynthia Gregory from the DA's office. I just wanted to remind everybody that the open meeting law still applies. And so if you go to the Zoom meeting, obviously, if you want to talk in general, just be conscious of that 3-person quorum. And then maybe submit comments for those people who wanted to attend that couldn't. I just wanted to remind everybody, don't forget about the open meeting law.
Okay, I forgot.
Thank you.
I can't see everybody at the same time, so I might miss you being up.
Change that.
I know, but I have to learn how to do it on
Okay,
this
sorry.
computer. Okay, any other discussion on that then? Do you want to take a break or do you want to go on?
I think we just go on because it shouldn't be too much
Okay.
longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, item number 10 is for discussion only, discussion of annual budget process for fiscal year 21-22 budget, the proposed fiscal year 21-22 budget, capital improvement project, tentative budget presentation, The BOCC, April 5 to 8, 2021. Final budget hearing, May 20th, 2021. So Amy, you want to take us through this?
Yes, please. Thank you. The annual budget process obviously is in full swing. The finance department is getting ready for the tentative budget presentations, which are April 5th through 8th. This year, the county has decided that certain departments will be selected to give a budget presentation and others will not. In previous years, it's been done different ways, in which sometimes the departments will all make presentations to the commissioners, and in other years, we have not. So this year, they've decided that they will select a few departments to give presentations, and I have not heard about our department yet. So I don't know if we will be making a formal presentation yet. Meanwhile, I have included in your packet a spreadsheet of the budget that the board approved at the previous meeting. And then I added a column of what has changed since that time. There have been a few little adjustments. Many of the adjustments are made at the county level, either by finance or other departments. There are a few that I had to tweak just a little bit. And I hope that this is helpful information, and I'm happy to answer questions about individual lines. I'll just say that at the end of the day, the difference between the budget you approved and the one that is currently in the system is $22. So it's very, very minor changes. One change that wasn't minor is our cost allocation amount was adjusted to be the same as fiscal year 1920. When I created the budget a couple of months ago, the original cost allocation amount was 171, but it looks like finance has moved that back to the exact same as the last fiscal year. So that went up by $3,400 roughly. So I had to make some adjustments on other budget lines and bring them down to compensate for that. It wasn't, as I said, it's not a huge change. The only difference now is $22. I did reduce the costs for training and travel for training. I don't anticipate that we'll be doing a lot of that, at least not in the first part of the fiscal year. And then other adjustments were very, very minor, simply to match contracted amounts and things like that. Any questions about that?
Well, Amy, we were talking when we had the meeting with you, you talked about the Polaris maintenance agreement.
Mhm.
Where is that in this budget?
In computer systems,
Computer systems? So
the second
What-
line,
what is it, over 21,000?
it's 21,000, and we do have the money in this year's budget to pay for it. I don't know what the amount will be in the next fiscal year. It could be about the same, or it could go up. It usually goes up a little bit every year. But it is
Okay,
in this
so-
budget.
I just wondering where it was located.
Yep.
And who has cell phones?
The bookmobile and me.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, other-
Yeah, any other questions? Just for the new board members, or new-ish board members, this is very common. When I submit the budget after the library board approves it, there are always going to be little adjustments and tweaks for things like insurance or motor pool, or cost allocations, as I said a minute ago. So this is very normal, and the changes are usually pretty minor. If there were any gigantic changes, the library board would need to approve that, but with a difference of only $22, that's something that finance can do. It's just the way the normal process is. I'm just explaining that. And then on our agenda item B is capital improvement projects. When the library board approved the budget, they asked me to submit 2 capital improvement projects. Well, actually 3. I'll get to that. 2 of them are here in your packet with pictures. These are the forms that I submitted to finance. I did not have estimates in the carpet or the shelving because I haven't gotten all of them yet. And I asked finance, should I wait for these quotes to come in? And they said, no, just to put in your best estimate until you get a quote. So we have just gotten 2 of the carpeting quotes, and I'm hoping that that's going to be sufficient enough to adjust this request. But I do know that both of the quotes were either at or below 100,000, which is what I put on the form. And so I will send those to the board if the finance department wants me to go ahead and do that. And then for the shelving, I have no quote at all. I'm waiting for one. I've talked to the maintenance department about us purchasing the shelving and then having them install it, and they don't do that. It's much too complex and too big of a job for our own maintenance people to do. So we'll have to have an outside source order and install the shelving. Now, it's not the entire library. It's 7 ranges on the main floor, and then all of the shelving on the upper floor, which is where we have reference and the law library. Those are the shelves that are all wooden. The rest of our shelves have steel shelving. And so those I don't think need to be replaced. Someday, if there was money to do it, we could replace all the shelving and cosmetically it would look a lot better. But for utilitarian purposes, I've only included the shelving that is at risk of not lasting very long. We've had a couple of shelves collapse in the past and we've repaired them. But that's something that we want to be proactive about. So that's what is behind the shelving request. And again, I have no quote. That was the best guess I could come up with, was 120,000. We submit these as unfunded. I've talked to the CFO about it, and she said to submit them as unfunded. And if the Board of Commissioners decides that they want to approve these requests, they will then decide where those funds might come from. They may take them from another source like they did when we had new air conditioning installed, or they may tell us to come up with the funding, in which case the library board could decide how they want to fund those projects. If you wanted to use our adjusted fund balance money that's set aside, that's certainly something you could explore. It's a little premature to do that at this point, but that's kind of how the process will run. The third project that the board asked me to investigate was a roof over the book drop. The good news is we don't have to submit that as a capital improvement project as part of the budget because it's under the $10,000 threshold. So it's something that the library board can approve, and it's actually under my signatory authority as well. And we don't have to get commissioners' approval. We don't have to take it through the budget process. We don't have to do anything but pay for the work. And so that quote is imminent. It's the same company that repaired the book drop when it was hit by the snowplow. They do excellent work and they're used by the county frequently. Parks and Recreation uses the same company to build like shelters and bench roofs and things like that. And so they're very familiar with the county and how we need to operate. So I'm really excited that that project is going to be something that we can just do on our own without having to go through several steps of approval. So I did not submit that as a capital improvement project because it's less expensive than I expected. So that's good news. That's a lot. Any questions?
Yeah, just for a couple of clarification. I noticed that the title of both of these was carpet replacement.
Oops. Thank you.
And then as you were talking about it, I think you switched the amounts, possibly
Right, I did.
because of the error in titles. So just for clarity, the 2 quotes you've gotten on carpet are under 100,000 or under 120,000?
They're at or under 100,000.
Okay, so they're considerably less than what's here.
Yeah, depending on what flooring we go with.
Okay,
I
because this showed 120 for carpet.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
just
I'll
making
fix
sure
that.
I had that straight.
Thank you. I'll fix that. I must have been in a hurry. Okay, so about the carpet and the flooring, I did mention in one of my reports that we had a pretty nasty accident on our hands last month. The carpet that we have is 21 or 22 years old. We think it was 1999 or 2000 when it was installed. It's been through a lot, and it's really showing it. But because we've had 2 or maybe 3 incidents of that nature, I'm trying to be delicate. The carpet's getting pretty gross, just to be perfectly honest. And so I asked the 2 vendors to give us quotes for hard flooring as well, because it's more sanitary. It's a whole lot easier to clean up, and carpet eventually starts to look really bad. So we have a couple of options. We could get carpet squares, which you can remove and replace easily when there's an accident or spilled coffee or what have you. And those are great. And I've had those at other libraries, and we have it up at the lake, and it's worked out very well. Or we could get some kind of laminate or vinyl flooring that would look like hardwood floors, or look like whatever we want them to look like, really. That is a little more expensive, but a lot easier to clean. So once we get to that point, if the commissioners approve the requests, and then the library board has an idea of the funding, then we can decide on what type of flooring and how much we want to spend.
As we look at which type of flooring, we should think about projected life of the different types as well.
Yeah, and the vendors gave me that information as well.
Yes.
Hard floors last longer, up to 30 years. Carpet is usually around 20 or so, although there's higher quality carpet available now that wasn't available then. And so they said some carpet, will last up to 25 years, depending on what you go with. The only drawback about hard flooring is that it's louder. Both of the carpet companies brought that to my attention and said, there's more noise you have with hard flooring, and you will get little scuff marks and things like that. In my opinion, it's a lot easier to clean up a scuff mark than it is to get something disgusting out of the carpet. But again, that's just something that we'll have to figure out if and when this moves forward.
Okay, other questions? Thank you very much, Amy. That's very good then.
So I'll let you know if we're selected to present a budget to the commissioners. That would probably be at the tentative presentations, but I'm not 100% sure on what they're doing. But then the final budget hearing is on May 20th. That's usually just finance and the commissioners together. And then it'll be considered approved.
Okay, let me know whenever, if we are asked to present.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 11 for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding reopening plans, library services, hours of operation, and bookmobile schedule in response to the COVID pandemic.
Okay.
Amy?
Thank you. I've included a proposal for reopening fully. As you probably know, the governor has said that on May 1st, there will be a transition to local authorities, meaning that local authorities can make their own decisions on what they're going to do. So I have used May 1st as a target date for us to go back to our regular hours of operation at the Minden Library. We can talk about Tahoe when we get there. But anyway, I've written this reopening plan as a proposal. It's something that it would be great if the library board could vote on it today, so that we can make plans. I will mention a couple of things. The summer reading program is scheduled to be more like a normal program. Obviously, last year it was all virtual. This year we're planning for in-person programming and our sort of typical or traditional summer reading program. That will start on June 5th and run through July 31st. Obviously, nothing's final yet until the board has decided what to do about hours of operation. So that would also mean that we would have, the public would have access to meeting rooms again, and we could start having other in-person programming like book club and story time and things like that. But some measures will still be in place. At the last department head meeting with the county, which we have twice a month, I'm grabbing my notes, the county manager said that all the counties have been asked to submit a plan to the state about how they want to take over authority on May 1st. Those plans will be presented to the state by April 15th. And so Patrick Cates, our county manager, is working on the plan for Douglas County. The goal being a May 1st return to services. However, he did note that masks and social distancing and other guidelines like that will still be in place. OSHA will still be inspecting places of employment after May 1st. So we're not 100% back to the way we were before. But those are some things that he noted that would be across the board. And that's something that I think the county will go along with whatever the state recommends on that, probably. I'm just guessing. Occupancy would go back to 100%. This is what the county manager has said. And hopefully by then everyone will be able to get vaccines. So I have aligned my proposal with that in mind. I think that we could reopen with our regular hours at Minden on May 1st, which is a Saturday. And that would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 10 to 7, Thursday and Friday, 10 to 6, and Saturday, 10 to 5. Those were our hours before the pandemic and have been our hours for a number of years since we recovered from the recession of the 2008, 2009. Lake Tahoe is a different story. Unfortunately, we don't have our Lake Tahoe staff. Those positions are still frozen at the moment. We have one person who's assigned to Tahoe. And then we have almost all of the positions at the Minden Library, which is why I think we can reopen with our regular hours. My proposal is that we keep Tahoe where it is, which would be Tuesday and Thursday, 10 to 4. That would be for regular in-person service as well as curbside. We'll keep curbside. Unfortunately, we just don't have enough people to go back to 4 days a week up at the lake. Once we do, we can restore those hours. The bookmobile is currently operating Wednesdays and Fridays, and we're working on hours and routes for after May 1st. So I don't have specifics right this second. As I said, we'll still have to practice good sanitation and wear masks and use contactless service, either in person or curbside. I think that covers everything. Oh, and last but not least, we would stop quarantining and sanitizing all of the books May 1st as well.
Will you have the periodicals available?
Yes.
The only question I have, I am concerned about Lake Tahoe, but I understand the staffing. But under library staff, I think all of the staff should work on site. If we're short of staff, we need to have all the staff here not working at home.
Right.
And so I would take that out.
Okay.
Other comments?
Do you know when you might have a bookmobile tentative schedule so that we can get more stops and more days possibly?
We'll have that by the next library board meeting. We've had a lot of people out with various sicknesses, and we haven't been able to meet and develop all of that yet, but we'll have it before the next library board meeting.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The reason I left in the work from home option is because it's in line with the county's work from home policy that it can be determined on a case-by-case basis. For instance, if someone is sick and contagious, whether it's COVID or not, and we don't want them in the building, then I could determine that they could work from home until they're better.
Well, there's something like that, I understand, but not on a regular basis or
No.
today I don't want to come in or what. I don't think they do that, but I just, I do know they've been working at home, and we're already saying we're short staffed. And I think they're to be here unless it's on a sick leave or vacation or.
Right. Elizabeth?
Under safety, I would remove face shields. They are not effective.
Okay.
They're not effective alone. A face shield or an acrylic barrier plus a mask that's close to the face is effective, But a face shield alone, you may as well be wearing nothing.
Okay,
I-
we got it.
I didn't know that, Elizabeth, so.
Mhm.
Any other?
Other
Question?
comments, question? Thank you again. This is very good. Do we have at least a plan set for it?
Mhm.
Is there a motion to approve the proposed plan with the revisions?
I move that we vote on the proposed, I'm sorry, but I got the wrong words. Help me with that.
Okay, or do we have a second?
Second,
And
Okay.
just to be clear, I'm only removing face shields.
that's the only revision.
Okay, I
Well,
think,
I remember, I would remove the work from home.
okay,
I recommend removing that because if they're ill or they're taking vacation leave, that's authorized. They can do that. But
okay,
I think it's important with the staff shortage we have that the staff be on site.
okay. All right, go ahead and vote.
Oh, I didn't hear the motion. I'm sorry. So is there a motion, Jill, was your
There's-
motion to approve?
Okay, there's
with
a
the two
motion
changes?
to approve the plan for reopening the library
Thank you.
With revisions.
with revisions.
With
Yes.
revision. And who seconded?
Elizabeth,
Elizabeth, okay. Further discussion? All of those in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. All those opposed? So it's a 4-0 vote to reopen the library May 1st.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you very much. Possible action, discussion and possible approval or approval with modification of revisions to update the library policies or new policies as listed below. Policy revisions are needed to accurately reflect current technology, facilities, and professional practice. The following policies may be discussed. A, the collection development policy, first reading. B, external communications policy, new, it's the first reading. Amy?
Thank you. The collection development policy that you have in your packet is a revision on one that was written in 2015. It was actually the first policy that I wrote after being hired. And it was written by all of the librarians on staff at the time. So there are about 5 people that contributed to its creation. This time I asked, again, all of the librarians, as well as Karen Fitzgerald, who does all of our acquisitions, to help revise the policy and make it current. So luckily, we didn't have to make a lot of changes. They were very small, just to bring them current and up to date. And then at the end, there are a couple of appendices, one being the Library Bill of Rights, the others being freedom statements from the American Library Association. Now, these have always been, or not always, but in the last couple of decades have been in the collection development policy. But we overhauled the policy a lot in 2015, but we've kept these statements in there. They're really important for us to adopt with the policy. And then last but not least, there's a form at the end called the request for reconsideration. That's when a patron may have an objection about something that's on the shelf. And they can fill out this form, which is then given to me. I contact the patron and discuss it with them. They have the option of going to the library board if they're not satisfied with the resolution that I've discussed with them. That hasn't happened in the last 6 years, but it does happen once in a blue moon. But usually the patron is satisfied once we have the discussion about the item or items that they're objecting to. So that's what that form is about at the end. And the rest of it was just brought current from 5 years ago.
Amy, could you tell us what was changed?
Oh, sure. I knew that you preferred clean copies, so so I didn't put a million red lines on it. However, I can tell you what the changes were. Sorry, I'm moving all my papers around. I updated the mission statement to the current mission statement. That's on page 2. And Luckily Laura is here. She can catch me if I miss something because she helped with it too. Uh, on page 5, on the requests for reconsideration that talks about the form and what our policy is, I just cleaned up the language a little bit at the suggestion of one of our librarians. And so the second paragraph says individuals instead of an individual, singular. And then we cleaned up the grammar on that sentence. And then down at the last paragraph, same thing. We just cleaned it up a little bit to a plural rather than a singular. And let's see. Sorry, a lot of paper here. The paragraph, there was an old paragraph in the old policy about the Lake Tahoe Heritage Collection, and that doesn't exist anymore. So any of our local history and state history is in the Pine Nut Room now as part of the Nevada collection. So it's not at Lake Tahoe anymore. So we eliminated that paragraph on page 3. And then we added the bookmobile wherever the branches were mentioned. And that's all of the changes, really.
One
And
other one I noticed, Amy, that there was guidelines for collections, for weeding the collection. And it
Yeah,
was-
that too. Thank you.
That changed. I mean, is there a new standard for that, or?
We're actually writing a weeding policy. We used to use the old standard, which was the CREW method. I can't remember what CREW stands for. It's an acronym. Librarians love acronyms. But there are too many for my old brain to remember. But Laura is actually working with staff on writing a new weeding policy. So that will come to the board in forthcoming months.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Further questions? I think it's good to have keep all the Bill of Rights and everything in here because it answers a lot of questions for us.
It does. It's great for the public to see as well.
Is there a motion to approve the library collection policy?
I'll make a motion.
Kate's made the motion. Is there a second? Jill
I'll
second.
second it.
Further discussion on that? Okay, all of those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, it passes 4-0. Thank you all very much then. The next policy is the external communications policy, and this is a new one.
It is new, and Trustee Garahan wrote this policy, so I'm not going to present it. I simply provided it. So
And I asked Cynthia Gregory to help me with this one because I wanted it to be clear lines of communication of who's responsible for what and how we interact with the public and stuff. So Cynthia did put this together for me.
So it's Cynthia Gregory from the Douglas County District Attorney's Office. So I know Trustee Garahan looked at other jurisdictions. I think there was Arizona, Wisconsin. Additionally, actually the ALA formed the basis for a lot of this. They had a policy that dealt with external communications and some of their smaller executive committees. And so basically the external communication policies talks about public relations, posting on the website. This was a recommendation from Ogletree with regards to communications and having clear direction with regards to what can and cannot be communicated. And so these type of policies, while they sound simple, I think are actually more difficult to write out. And so it was hopefully we tried to bring it forward in a simple fashion, basically saying, look, if you've established policy, then absolutely the director can comment on that. If you haven't established a policy or there's a question, then that needs to come back to the board. And we did try to put in some flexibility with regards to time constraints because sometimes things happen, more quickly than the board meets. And then in that case, it goes to the chair, and the chair and the library director work through what is it appropriate to respond to, who, and do you need to bring in other people resources from the county, such as the public information officer. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. It was kind of set up to saying, hey, here are the goals for the external public relations, and then here are the duties of each. And I know Amy's had that opportunity to review it and make suggestions. I don't know if she has any comments or corrections or suggestions, or if any of the other board members do, or Kate, I don't know if you have any other comments you want to make.
No, thank you for explaining that so well.
Yes.
I have one question. After I've read it a couple of times, it doesn't specifically address contact with media, like Record Courier or whomever. I understand that it's sort of, it says that the library director is responsible for keeping the public and local media informed. But it doesn't say anything about the library board chair or the library board interacting with the media. And I'm not sure if that's implied and I just missed it, or.
So I'm not sure I understand the question. So it's clear that as the library director, a spokesperson, as written, it says, you know, is to keep the public and local media informed on a regular basis about the library's day-to-day functions. And then if you go on, it talks about if there's a inquiry, specifically it's B1. 5.
Oh,
It says if there's questions or inquiries on issues or matters which the LBT has not, OT has not established an official, then you go into the consultation, and that's for, you know, media or any type of online, or let's say it was a national organization that reached out and had questions. And so it doesn't say media, but I think it's, you know, implied. But if you think it would be beneficial to include that, I think it's something that can be done fairly easily. But that was the thought process.
okay. That makes a lot of sense now that you've explained it.
And it does have cultivating a staff and relationship with local media representatives. So
Okay.
further comments or questions? This is the first reading. We can vote on it today, or we can bring it back for a second reading. Then I would
think
move approval of the external communications policy. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, Jill, second. Further discussion? All of those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion passes 4-0. Okay, thank you.
Great.
And thank you, Cynthia, for your assistance.
Yes, thank you. This is, we're getting a lot of things done, aren't we?
We are.
And then I have one question for Amy for the trustees binders. Will we get all these policies with the new adopted date and stuff? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Possible action, discussion and possible action on the format for future library board meetings and discussion of in-person meetings, virtual meetings, and hybrid meeting options. Review requirements to provide safe access to public meetings for the community and county employees in adherence with the state of Nevada directives. I would very much like to see us have in-person board meetings. I think it would help us understand what is being said. And as Elizabeth said, I think it would also help us then get to know each other, and you see how each other works. And we do have a personal relationship then in some sense. So I would like to see us move at that. And maybe when we move to May 1st, we can move to our monthly in-person meetings.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
At the 2-on-1 meeting with Trustee Garahan and Chairperson Rogers, we also talked about a hybrid of in-person as well as remote. We can certainly do that. We did that once last year where we had a physical location and a Zoom option. And so each person could decide how they want to participate. We could do that in April or as Chairperson Rogers said, we could do that in May. We could just have in-person meetings back to normal in May and continue with, we could continue with a virtual meeting for April. There's all
I
kinds of,
myself prefer an in-person meeting for April and the option to do virtual.
Okay,
I think
so,
including the option for someone to participate virtually is wise, because if I had a sniffly nose that morning
mhm.
and it was only in person, I would not be able to attend. I think that would be inconsiderate of me to attend if I had the sniffles that morning, for example.
Now, we do have in the bylaws that if a person is not available, such as Heather today, they can do it through communications technology. So we do have that available in our bylaws now. But maybe we want to try a hybrid for April. And then in May, we move to in-person meeting.
So just Cynthia Greger from the DA's office, just so we're clear, when you move to in-person, Amy, does that mean that there's no longer the YouTube channel?
thank you, Cynthia. I was going to ask that question actually. Prior to the pandemic, our board meetings were recorded audio only, which is that's the minimum that open meeting law requires. We did not do video then. And so a question for the board to decide would be whether or not we need to continue the YouTube part. We don't even have to do that in April. We started doing that because there was a lot of discussion and public comment. Now that has kind of died off, I think the YouTube part is optional. We would still be in compliance with open meeting law if we did not do the YouTube part.
I think audio only is sufficient.
I agree.
I think so too.
Mhm.
So that could mean then, if I'm just to clarify that in April, we do a hybrid meeting. We have the option for people to attend in person at the Minden Library and obviously the option to Zoom in using Zoom. We would not have the recording or the broadcast on YouTube, but we would still be on Zoom. So there would be video for the board, but not for the public. I think that's what I'm hearing you all say.
Okay, Amy, so if we do Zoom, let's just say Heather would come in by Zoom, and I just use that as an example. At our in-person board meeting, we have the technology in the library that we could see her and she could participate. Okay.
Yes, we have a camera that we can use for the whole group. So if one
Okay.
person was Zooming and everybody else was here in the building, we would be able to see them and they would be able to see us.
Okay.
Now, when you say audio only, will that be posted somewhere for people to listen in later if they are not able to attend our meeting, or?
They can request that. The way we did it before, we keep those recordings for, I forget how many years, Veronica probably knows. But we keep those audio recordings on file, and if someone wants them, then we can make them accessible to them on a flash drive. But it's not posted like the video is.
Okay.
Cynthia Greger from the DA's office, I think the big difference is public comment. So what the message you're sending or what you're informing the public is that we're in person. So if you want to make public comment, you need to come to the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas right now they're allowed to call, and Veronica plays the call via Zoom. So I think that's the other consideration. So in April, you will allow, if you do a hybrid, you're allowing them to call in and or appear in person. And that's a full in person in May that they have to come to the meeting for public comment.
That's correct. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, open meeting law also allows people to submit public comment in writing ahead of the meeting, even without the pandemic.
Absolutely. That's always been a given. I'm just talking about for the opening and opening.
Oh, I know. I just want to make sure.
Right.
Absolutely. I just want to make sure everybody's clear if you do a hybrid in April that you're allowing both Zoom public comment via the call-in and in person. And then if you go to full in person, it's only public comments either in writing, as Amy pointed out, or in person.
or in person at the meeting.
Okay,
Yes. And we would
But
still
we were
require
con-
masks at that point as well.
Yeah. and distancing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, is there further discussion? So do we have a motion to hold a hybrid meeting in April and then move to full in-person meetings in May?
I'll make that motion.
If you could include in the motion, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the direction to cease the YouTube broadcast after today's meeting, because I'll need to let them know. Or do we want to do one more month of a YouTube broadcast?
I would, if we're going to do a hybrid in April, I would do one more month.
Okay, well then, I'm sorry to make you redo the motion,
We
but
don't seem to all agree, so maybe we should deal with that. Let's discuss that, because I saw some of us nodding and some of us saying no video next month. I don't think we need video next month. I think the
I don't
audio is
think we need-
sufficient.
I don't think we need video next month.
YouTube posting.
YouTube
uh-huh.
post it.
Okay,
That's
so
okay
the-
with me.
I'll
Okay.
make a motion that we hold the hybrid meeting in April with no YouTube video and then back to in-person meetings in May.
Okay,
Great.
I'll second.
okay, so
All of
Bonnie
those in
seconded.
favor?
Cynthia
Cynthia,
talked-
you're muted.
Okay, all of those in favor?
Now,
Aye.
Cynthia has a
Wait, wait,
comment.
Oh,
So
I
how
don't see
will,
Cynthia.
sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. So before you take your vote, my question is how will the public know when to call in for public comment if it's not done on the YouTube?
That's a good point.
Okay,
Well,
so,
we post
so
the agenda.
Right, but you have public comment at the beginning and the end, and you don't know what time to call
Right.
in for the end.
They won't know what's happening if they can't see it from home.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Okay, so
Yeah, you're
maybe
right.
we
Okay.
need to do the video in April.
If
So-
you're going to have the hybrid, if you were going to have fully in person, then, I don't think the video is necessary.
Okay,
So what is the advantage? I'm now rethinking. Why do hybrid next month? I guess I'm now asking myself and you all.
well, because I think some people still want to participate that way. And I think we need to give the public fair warning that we're changing back to the way we used to have our meetings. So it gives them one more month to participate in this forum that we've had.
Okay,
thank you, Kate. Okay,
And I think
Okay.
some of the public is waiting for the vaccinations to be a little more widespread before
Right.
coming back to the library. That's
Right.
my impression.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
have we all had our vaccination?
I have.
I have.
And now, May 1st, you can 16 and over.
Mhm.
If you can get an appointment.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the trick.
I mean, it took me a month to get an appointment after I was eligible.
Okay, so all of those in favor of the motion?
Well, do I?
Aye.
Okay,
The motion has not changed.
okay, then yes.
And all of those opposed? So the motion passes for the change of the meetings to April will be hybrid and we'll start in-person meetings in May and it passes 4-0. Thank you all very much. Amy, it's your turn now.
Okay. Thank you all. I appreciate the direction. So for the monthly report, we will not have a statistical report today. Julia's been out on extended sick leave, so we will resume having those statistics next month, and she'll cover 2 months at that time. She just got back yesterday, so we need a little time. But my monthly report is available in your packet. I've covered a lot of the topics that I've been sending in my weekly reports to the board, but I'll just quickly summarize. The curbside pickup service is dropping every month. I think last week we only had 68 roughly transactions, and only a couple of those being up at the lake. We have more and more people coming in person, which is great. We're not quite back to the pre-pandemic numbers, but we've seen a significant increase in in-person visits. The bookmobile is still kind of creeping along. It takes a while for people to get used to a new routine. And so the bookmobile being at the senior center is starting to catch on. We've had a couple of patrons request items from the bookmobile, which is awesome. Meaning that they place a hold and pick it up at the bookmobile stop rather than coming to the library. And so I'm excited that that's starting to happen again. But it will probably be summertime before we see a lot of increase. It just takes a while for the community to get used to the new routine, and with so many things open and closed, you know, it's hard to remember. And I can relate to that. Anyway, so I see big improvements coming, but at the moment it's a little slow. We've promoted another staff member, Kaylee Williams, who's been a page here for more than a year, is now officially a library technician, which means she's full-time now, which is awesome. We are posting the position to replace her as a page, which is a part-time 19-hour-a-week position. I believe that's going to get posted today or tomorrow. So we will replace her very soon. Let's see. The management training program is still going on. Obviously, I attended one yesterday, which is why we had to change our meeting to today. Yesterday's training was on government finance. And I don't know when the next class is. But anyway, so that's all moving along. We had another staff luncheon on Employee Appreciation Day, which was fun. The staff always enjoys that. The program from the CARES Act with the laptops and the hotspots is almost ready to go public. We just got all of the equipment in, and Larry is adding software as we speak. So those will be circulating very soon, and there'll be a press release to go with that. And as I mentioned earlier, the summer reading program planning is in full swing. Now that we've promoted Rachel to senior library tech, she is assigned to youth services. So she is replacing Maria. Rachel's specialty is with teens and young adults. And so she's doing a lot of that programming, and Kira is doing a lot of the young children programming, but they work together on everything. But Rachel's doing a phenomenal job with the teens and has been helping with those all along. And she's responsible for some of the virtual programming for teens that we've had for the last few months. And she's doing a fantastic job. So I'm excited to see how she's going to impact our summer reading program. And then last but not least, we have the new service with the school district called Public Library Connect. And this is from our vendor Overdrive. They're our ebook provider, or one of them, I should say. They have a huge network of public libraries and school libraries. And so they've created a program to connect those two. And that means that any child, any student in Douglas County School District can now have access to our ebooks from their library, meaning they can use their school ID, they can use their library card, and they can access everything that everyone else can access. And the big deal here is that they can use their school ID. They don't have to have a library card. Anybody who's worked in a public library knows that children lose their library cards all the time. And sometimes we're replacing those cards on a monthly basis. So, and that's great, but it's a lot more convenient if you don't have a library card, or if you've lost it or you left it at grandma's house or whatever, that you can just log right in and download those ebooks. So we are working with the school librarians to add more to that collection, so there'll be more for them to read. And then we're also coordinating on marketing. We're writing a press release as we speak, and that will be put out jointly by the school system and the library. It's a really exciting program because not only does it give kids way more access to digital collections, but it also increases the use of our digital collections, which is great. And best of all, it's free, totally free. I love that. So that's our most exciting program right now, in my opinion. And that's about it.
Any questions for Amy?
I have a bookmobile related question, partly because I'm new and I haven't really been that aware of the bookmobile in the past. What are future locations that we want it to go to?
Thank you for asking. That's a great question. a lot of the locations we went to before the pandemic will be coming back as possible. And that includes assisted living facilities, schools, community center and TRE. We already go to the community center in Gardnerville. And we've been to Minden Park. And so the schools are actually the most popular stop. We get there in the after school hours. And so kids and parents will jump on the bookmobile and we have a lot of participation there. But we also go to the Chateau, and I think it's called Carson Valley Living now, or Carson Valley Senior Living. They've changed their name. Anyway, we go to both of those places. Right now we're not, obviously, because of COVID, and we're waiting for them to invite us back. But prior to the pandemic, the seniors loved coming on the bookmobile because they could place holds, they can call us on the phone, and they know that it's going to be delivered to them, every Thursday or whatever the day was. So we'll be going back to those places, but we're also open to suggestions for new places too.
Great, that sounds good. I was particularly thinking about Topaz because it's kind of a remote part of the county.
Yeah, they have a senior dining program out there as well at their community center. And so we coordinated with them, and we would go when they were going to have the most people there, either for meals or bingo. Actually, they don't want us to come on bingo day anymore now that
Competition.
Yeah, there's too much happening. They're more focused on bingo. So, but we do go when they have their congregate dining, and they really love it out there.
Great, thank you for that education.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
Okay, closing public comments. At this time, public comment will be taken on those items that are within the jurisdiction and control of the Library Board of Trustees. To make public comment during the meeting, the public must call 775-783-6024 and leave a voice message, which will be played for the Library Board of Trustees and the public. Any written public comment received after 4 p.m. the day before the Library Board meeting will be compiled and added as supplemental material to the county's website and distributed to the Library Board of Trustees within 24 hours after the meeting. Veronica, do we have any public comment?
We have not received any public comment.
Okay, it's 12:14, so we'll take a 5 minutes if we get a call for public comment.
Yeah, I received an email. I don't know if the other board members did or if the library staff did, from a person who said they wanted it to be included as public comment. Is this appropriate?
We didn't receive it, no.
Right. So if you wanted to read it into the record, you could, or if you received it in writing, I think you can submit it as supplemental public comment.
Did anyone else receive an email from Sarah Jacobson?
Yes. Do you want to read it into public comment, Kate? I thought it was very good and it's complimentary to our services.
Okay, it was from Sarah Jacobson to the Library Board of Trustees. Please include this public comment for the March 2021 board meeting. I want to thank the Library Board of Trustees for making the decision to reopen the library. Being able to browse and check out books again has been a true joy and personally helped myself and my children. As we have been going to the library weekly, it has been wonderful to see other community members enjoying the library. As an educator, the access to books and other learning materials is truly helping the families I work with. A special thank you to Trustee Garahan, Trustee Martin Meyer, and Trustee Rogers for recognizing the importance of the library in our community and for lifting the voices of the hundreds of people who wanted access to the library. Your rational decision-making is truly admirable in a time when many are choosing to continue fear-based decision-making. Sincerely, Sarah Jacobson.
Thank you, Kate. So that was a question, Cynthia, I had, because we have not in the past been reading the written public comment coming into us. So unless people go online to see it, they won't know it. I think we need to maybe read the public comment. Do we get in writing? Is that permissible?
So Cynthia Gregory from the DA's office. So since it was submitted in writing, normally what would happen is I think that, and probably what was anticipated is that it would have been forwarded to the library for inclusion in the packet as public comment, because you can submit written public comment. If you want to read public comment that's been submitted in writing, then you need to read all the public comment that's been submitted
Okay.
in writing. So, you know, it's one of those, you know, if you're going to do it for one, then you got to do it for all.
Well, this
And
is the only one we received this time. So,
Right, and that's the thing is, I think it was interesting that it doesn't sound like it was sent to all of the board members, nor the library. So I think that the person was relying on you as trustees to submit it either verbally, which was done, which is great, and or forwarded on to the library so that it could have been included, and the public then would have had access to the public comment as well. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
yes.
Yeah, so Kate, if you could forward that to Veronica, we could still put it up as supplemental.
Okay, yeah, I just had no idea who it had been sent to.
I didn't. It
And
just
I
said to
didn't
the
know-
library board of trustees.
Okay. Okay, so. I think we have one more minute.
One more minute. Well, this has been a very good meeting. We got a lot accomplished.
Mhm.
Been any public comment?
There has been no public comment.
Okay, public comment is closed then. Do we have a motion to adjourn
I move to adjourn the meeting.
to second? Okay, we are adjourned now at 12:19. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
you.
Thank you.
On.